Okay. I am going to look at the sentence structure, the John Lennon thing that I left you on Friday, I think it was. So let's have a look at that. Share screen. Now I'm going to try something a wee bit different here, which hopefully will work. Bear with me a wee bit, but I think this will work. If I go for text. Yep. And yeah. Okay. So far, so good. And I'll get this wee squiggly line and I'll make it red. And yeah, off we go. Okay, so we're looking at sentence structure. We talked about the length of sentences, the way the sentence was structured, inversion, words in a certain order. We talked about repetition, and I left you with this example to have a look at. Okay, so let's look at this in close detail. John Lennon was a man of peace who could be at war with himself. He was a strong-willed man who became weak from abused substances. He was a rich man who felt for the poor. He made love to many women, but he loved only 3. His life was constantly reinvented, his genius sometimes sapped by his own demons. In life, he was a creator and inventor. In death, he became an icon. He was a man who carried one single passport, but was always, without doubt, in life and death, a citizen of the world. Now, you are being asked to look at the sentence as a whole, but in particular, there's the key bit there. There's where I would want you to underline on the question paper. And we talked about that last week, that you're making marks all the time on the answer paper, the passage, but you've also got to underline the question so that you are redirected. Your brain is focusing right in on what you are being asked to do. Okay, so remember we talked about looking at the punctuation and either circling the punctuation or putting a forward slash between sentences at this point in time. I'm going to look at punctuation tomorrow. But here is what I'm going to do here. So there's a sentence there, there's a sentence there, sentence there, sentence there, sentence there. So that's the first thing that I do. Okay, I look at, are there any particularly long or short sentences? So it strikes me that they are kind of a similar length. And there's quite a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences in this many lines. So there's a lot of sentences, but they're a sort of standard length, aren't they? Well, what's going on here then? Okay, now my eye is drawn to the beginning of the sentences, and I immediately see that we have got a bit of repetition. He was always was a man. He was, okay. He did it, his life was, right. So, okay, immediately now I'm beginning to build up a pattern. I'm beginning to see that the writer has created a pattern. Okay. So he is repeated, he was, his life was, he was. Okay, and we talked about the idea of repetition and how a writer uses repetition deliberately to create a certain effect, to emphasize something, and the answer to what he's emphasizing is the subject. And here we've got the subject, if you like, in the question, conveys the writer's personal opinion. By repeating he was, we've got the idea of the number and variety of things that John Lennon was, okay? So let's then look in a wee bit, I'll come back to that. Let's look in a bit more detail about what's actually going on in the sentence. So John Lennon was a man of peace who could be at war with himself. And I see that I've got opposites there. Peace and war. Oh, strong-willed and weak. Rich man who felt for the poor. All within the one sentence. Okay, so bingo, we've got a really good thing here to write about the sentence structure. Now remember, if you're being asked to write about the sentence structure in a question, then there's obviously a lot to comment on. So you should never ever be stuck. What are we going to say there about this? He was a man of peace who could be at war. He was a strong-willed man who became weak. He was a rich man who felt for the poor. How does that come back to the sentence, come back to the question, sorry, conveys the writer's personal opinion? Well, my answer to that already is that the writer has used the structure of the sentence where he's used opposite words to show us the conflicting personalities, the conflicting aspects of John Lennon's character that he had, and to show us that he structures the sentences using the different opposites. Instead of saying he was a very complicated man, he had very contrasting sort of aspects of his character, instead of saying that, he structures the sentences beautifully, showing us these contrasts, okay, and the variety of them. Now, the sentences themselves are written. Let's deal with this repetition of he was, his life was. Well, he repeats he was at the beginning of the sentences or within the sentences in a listing function almost, isn't it? The sentences are numerous, but they all begin with the same he was or have he was within it. Now come back to the sentence, the question, sorry, keep getting that mixed up today. The writer's personal opinion. Okay, so he uses a listing function to show us, and remember that phrase we talked about last week, the number and the variety of aspects of his character, and to show us that he was a conflicted character, he was a difficult character, he was contrasting character, and the writer thinks that about him. To show us that, he writes a kind of list. Okay, and then we're going to look at what, now remember to come right down to the end. So there is your line reference. So that says, say, line 6, and that says line 12. See, and in the question it would be show how the sentence structure of the paragraph, or show how the sentence structure of lines 6 to 10, and that's where you would get your line down your page like that, so that your eye is drawn right to the end. So you've got to comment on this here too, okay? You're not just to stop there. Okay, so let's look at what's going on here. In life, he was a creator and inventor. In death, he became an icon. Okay, so we've got in life and in death. Okay, so we've got the contrast between what was he. Now look at the content. In life, he was creative, he was busy, he was doing things. And at death, he became an icon. And he was kind of revered for that, made famous for that once he died. So there's a contrast going on there. And then he carries on this contrast idea. He was a man who carried one single passport, but was always, without doubt, in life and death, a citizen of the world. And that phrase there, he was a man, look what's going on in that sentence, a man who carried one single passport, but in both life and death, summarising what's come before, a citizen of the world. So what's he saying there? What's his opinion of him there? He was saying, well, he only came from one country, but in actual fact, he belonged to all countries, didn't he? He was famous. His reputation was worldwide, and everybody kind of owned him. He wasn't just British. He belonged to the world. And that there is a kind of climactic phrase, isn't it? summing up all of that. Can you see how the last sentence there is summing up kind of all that's gone on in the paragraph before? Okay, so what does an answer to this look like? I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and I've got this here. Okay, so an answer to this would look like this. Okay, the writer uses a series of opposites and put the opposites in inverted commas. Peace and war, strong-willed, weak, rich, poor. Emphasize, and come back to the question, the writer's view that Lenin was riddled with contradictions, and say the same thing again. He was not straightforward. He had conflicting aspects to his character. Okay, now, as an examiner, reading that, I would tick your series of opposites. I would tick riddled with contradictions, tick straightforward, tick, tick, tick. Great, you've got it, you know it. Okay, and then you come down, so say it and say it again. Secure the marks. And then there's a list-like structure to show the number and variety. There's that phrase, number and variety. The number and variety of aspects. I'm not going to try and do that. I'll make a mess of it. The number and variety of aspects there were to his character. And the writer also uses the in life and in death structure to show that the difference in the way he was viewed when he was alive and the way he was regarded once he died. And then the sentence climaxes with the citizens of the world, showing us that the writer thought that Lenin's appeal was far-reaching and impressive. He belonged to no country. Even though he was British, he belonged to the world. He was a citizen of the world, and such was his reputation. Okay, can you see what we're doing there? We're tearing it apart and we're circling, we're underlining, we're making connections. Tomorrow we're going to crack on and look at punctuation and how we use that in language questions, how we use the punctuation to help us, how the writer uses punctuation to structure the sentence, how we need to know what punctuation is, why the writer uses it, the definition of a colon, a semicolon. We need to know that for higher English, and you need to learn it if you don't know it by now, and then how you use that in your answer. So we'll look at that tomorrow. Okay, I will see you tomorrow in here. Any questions about that, can you put them below, and see you soon.